In early 1796, France was exhausted. The revolution had shaken the nation for nearly a decade. Its enemies, Britain, Austria, and their allies, were closing in on every front. And yet, from this chaos emerged a young general whose name was beginning to spread through the army, Napoleon Bonaparte. At just 26, he was appointed commander of the Army of Italy, a hungry, unpaid, and demoralized force. The Directory saw the Italian front as a distraction from the real war in Germany. But Napoleon saw it differently. He saw opportunity. When he arrived, his men expected another bureaucrat. Instead, they met a commander who spoke directly to them. He promised victory, food, and glory. His first address became famous. "Soldiers, you are ill-fed and nearly naked. The government owes you nothing. I will lead you to the most fertile plains in the world, rich provinces and great cities will be in your power." With that, the Italian campaign began, and so did Napoleon's legend. Within weeks, he outmaneuvered the Piedmontese and forced them out of the war. Then he turned on Austria's armies, striking with speed no one expected. His genius lay in movement. He divided his enemies, attacked their weakest points, and struck before they could unite. At Montenotte, Lodi, and Arcole, he led from the front, often under fire. At Lodi, he famously charged across the bridge with his troops, driving Austrian forces into retreat. That moment gave rise to his aura of invincibility. His soldiers began calling him the Little Corporal. By 1797, France controlled northern Italy. The campaign ended with the Treaty of Campo Formio, forcing Austria to recognize French dominance and reshaping the map of Europe. Napoleon had not only defeated one of Europe's oldest powers, he had made himself the most celebrated man in France. But with fame came fear. The French government, the Directory, began to worry. A young general adored by his army was a dangerous thing. They needed him far from Paris. So they sent him east, on a mission that would serve both France and his ambition to strike at Britain's empire by threatening its lifeline, Egypt. In 1798, Napoleon set sail with an army of 35,000 men and a fleet of ships, heading across the Mediterranean. The goal was bold: cut off British trade routes to India and establish a French colony that could challenge the British Empire. But this was no ordinary expedition. Alongside his soldiers, Napoleon brought more than 160 scientists, engineers, and scholars, men who would study the ancient land and collect its secrets. The campaign was as much about discovery as it was about conquest. In July, the French army landed near Alexandria. Within weeks, they faced the Mamluk cavalry at the Battle of the Pyramids. Under the blazing Egyptian sun, Napoleon formed his men into great hollow squares, disciplined formations bristling with bayonets and artillery. When the Mamluks charged, the French fire tore through them. The victory was swift and decisive. Napoleon stood before his troops and pointed toward the ancient monuments behind them. "Soldiers, 40 centuries look down upon you." It was propaganda and genius. The campaign gave France new glory and Napoleon a reputation as a conqueror of East and West. But his triumph was short-lived. Just weeks later, the French fleet was destroyed at the Battle of the Nile by Britain's Admiral Horatio Nelson. Trapped in Egypt, Napoleon's dream of an Eastern empire began to crumble. Still, his control on land remained firm. He organized Egypt's government, studied its resources, and fought off Ottoman forces at Acre and Abuka. Back in France, however, things were falling apart. The Directory was collapsing under corruption and unrest. Napoleon knew that France once again needed a strong hand, and he intended that hand to be his. In 1799, he quietly slipped past British ships and returned to France. His Egyptian army would be left behind, but his destiny was ahead of him. He arrived in Paris to a nation desperate for order, and saw his moment to seize it. The general who had conquered Italy and defied the deserts of Egypt was no longer just a soldier. He was preparing to conquer something greater, the heart of France itself.